Now, you don't get any selection of weapons here, but what I would say is very important is the size of your willy. I skipped over it a little bit, but you can change your body. And what I usually like to do is up around that like second row of studs on the door. I like to see my willy at about that height. I don't know if you can get much higher than that, but you can definitely get lower than that. And the larger your willy is, I mean, you've got more mass. It's going to be harder for the other guys to topple you. It's going to be easier for you to topple them. And then you just think of like the logistics of it. If you're holding the weapon up at your shoulder width, if you're taller, that means it's going to be closer to either their neck or their head, as opposed to like their chest. So it's super important. It's going to be a very long run all the way to the top, and especially at the top, you want the biggest willy you can get. Now, as for the actual Beggar rounds itself, you know, the only thing I can say is for your fists, you normally want to try and put your fists up before you start swinging them. Otherwise, willy has a tendency to like kind of like slap a little bit, which is not as good as full-on punching. Now, as for the actual axe guy, if you get a candelabra or if you get a knife, he is easily taken out with that. But otherwise, you know, the strategy you can see there, as long as you wait for him to throw his axe out first, you know, they always have a pause of a couple moments between when they attack. So once his axe is down, he's not in an attacking state. You can go in and you can land some kicks on him and you can trip him pretty easily. And as soon as anyone in this game is on the ground, it's over. You can kick them, you can point your weapon at their neck, you can do whatever you want, but they're going to go down. Okay, we've got a couple different choices for Peasant. First one we're going to start off with is the hoe. Hoe is pretty interesting. It's got a very long range, but it's like real damaging part of it is like in a very specific, very small spot. If you hit them with the hoe, like on the actual tip, is actually incredibly powerful. And at this stage of the game, there's nothing that has better range. Like if this were like rock, paper, scissors, in theory, the hoe could beat fork. Otherwise, you got to be really good in order to make it feel like it's really worthwhile to use on other things. Even still, we're going to go through a couple normal fights. We're going to go up against the boss. I'll show you what you can do there. It's a fun weapon. The hardest thing about the hoe is like you want to do the downward strike, but just the way the controls are set up in half sword is I find generally it's kind of hard to actually pull that off. Now, when you actually go up against the actual scythe boss, it's going to when you probably want to half sword the hoe. You don't want to be at a long range with him because he's the same thing. He's got a long cutting weapon and his is much bigger than yours. So we're going to half sword it and then we're just going to try and stab him with the actual hoe part of the hoe. And of course, when you've got the weapon out and once you're starting to lodge an attack, that's when you're going to want to start shifting and run forward and push the momentum of the hoe into the enemy. Next up after the hoe is the axe. Axe is very fun. This is probably going to be like the greatest damage fantasy that you'll have in the game because they don't have any armor. They don't really have any shields or anything like that. And if you get a full chop off on them, it's like immediately done. So it's like, you just gradually, like briefly tap them with the axe. And like their arms just pop off. Of course, I'm not doing any like special stances here. I'm just doing what I would consider like a full attack stance. You know, when the weapon's fully to your side, it gives you the chance to get the most momentum. You know, damage in this game is done entirely physics-based, so the more space you have to accelerate your weapon into attacking the enemy, the better. Same thing with the scythe boss. You do want to be a little bit careful. It's not a bad idea with the axe to try and maybe get a couple hits off before you get up close to him. But if you ever get right up into chest length, you don't want to back up to get a better swing. You would want to go back into a half sword position. Okay, now for maybe the strongest weapon in the peasant class is the fork. This thing's a beast. I would say the one thing to keep in mind is you want to like be aware of how the actual like attacks on the weapon work. You want to first ready it, then you want to press Alt, and then you want to be able to like stick it forward. So the actual fights here, like it's like a speed run. In this case, I just knocked this guy over. But pretty much you just run forward, ready, extend, and like that's it. That is pretty much all you have to do in every fight. Now, when it comes time for like another like fork on fork combat, it might be worth just backing out and let you know, in case you're worried about doing the 50-50. Otherwise, you can half sword it and try and get in and like tap them in the head with the actual like fork part of the business. This is just crazy. I had to barely edit this at all. As soon as they start screaming with the fork, it's going to be a little bit of a balance between pushing forward to confirm the kill, but also not running into their weapon. If they're already dying and about to go down on the ground, do not make the mistake of being like full sending it and then cutting yourself in half on their weapon. Just word to the wise. Okay, after Peasant comes Commoner. I've only got one weapon I could really show that's truly from the Commoner. So we will show off the sword. There are a lot of videos on the internet that are going off about like different stances for the sword. I don't know any of them. So if your weapon's in front of you, you can do a little bit of an automatic parry. If you see the weapon coming down, you can always swing your weapon into it and do an active parry and then attack back into them. In general, I like to full send it. The one thing I will say is be very careful about like getting into a half sword battle. It's always better just to give up at that point. You don't want to end up getting your own head cut off. Otherwise, it is an acceptable piercing weapon. I don't use it as a piercing weapon that often, but if you are in a stance or in something against something where it's going to be like a mirror match, sword on sword, the AI will react to like a piercing stance very negatively and they'll like get themselves pushed back out of fear. So it's worth consider using it there. I'm going to go ahead. Actually, I guess I don't need to skip ahead. So this boss coming up, the big two-hand sword guy. This is genuinely, if you're going through progression, he is the hardest boss in the game because you don't really have any weapon available to you that gives you an advantage. You don't have a major range advantage. You don't have a major speed advantage. You definitely don't have an armor advantage. And that weapon is like final tier. So this fight does go well for me. I would say in general, if you wanted to use sword, definitely take better advantage of like the stabbing sort of motion, push him back into the fence until he stumbles and then go in there. I mostly just get lucky. Like I was having a good run with sword and I just more or less sent it. Like I was in the zone. I have practiced this since then. I could not replicate the success as well as this one. This is all one take. I was like, wow. Maybe sword is really good. So you see there, more or less that strategy I talked about worked, right? So I was able to position so that he was getting backed up into the fence just by holding the sword in front of me. He starts stumbling a little bit. I go and I take 1 or 2 hits while he's stumbling. I get lucky. I deal enough damage so he starts reacting to his arm getting cut off. And then I cut his head off. But again, it doesn't normally work like that. He normally puts out his sword. He swings 2 or 3 times. The only thing is if he swings 3 times, you can try, go in, get 1 hit, and then back out. Now, for most of you, much easier is just going to be full sending it with the fork. So the nice thing is if you use the Commoner, you get double points. You get the shield guy. A lot of times he puts his shield out and it like deflects the shield directly into his head. It's like, what are you doing, bro? Don't do that. And again, normally I wouldn't recommend it. So if like you're feeling very frustrated, it's okay. Like if you do keep full sending it on the sword guy, like 50% of the time, you will land the fork and he'll die. The other 50% of the time, he's going to cut your head off and you have to make your way up the ranks again. What would be better, what would increase your odds is, again, sticking out the fork, getting him bouncing back and forth into the fence, and then go in and get the stab and then take him down. Next up is the Militia. So for the Militia, you get a choice of faction. Just for fun, when I was practicing this, I picked the faction that did faster kicking. Faster kicking is nice. It does increase like the velocity and damage of your kick. It's fun. I don't think for most people it's going to be the best choice though. I think across the board, reduced damage is just better. Faster sprinting is neat, but it actually uses up more stamina. So while in the short run, it might be nice to get you around faster, especially as you get more armor on, it's actually going to be like a little bit of a detriment. Same token, faster stamina recovery will be better later on, but it doesn't do much for you if you're not wearing armor. No matter what, if you've got damage resistance, anytime you take damage, you end up dealing less damage. So by reducing the amount of damage you take, you're thereby increasing the damage you will deal over the course of the fight. First choice here is just using an axe and a shield. It's okay. You know, at this point, you're starting to fight people that have armor. In a lot of cases, they have shields. It's a little dangerous because it does mean you're going to be like getting into melees. You could be getting into melees with people with swords. Use your shield defensively. You know, you want to be putting yourself in a situation where they're not going to be able to be getting at any one of your vitals. The nice thing is if you're swinging from your right hand, you're naturally guarding some of your vitals with your shield, and that's getting in the way of them. Now, likewise, you could always switch hands, go into a full aggro stance, and that way neither of you are getting the advantage of your shield. But I think that's better for when you have more armor. Not too much advantage here. The main thing is I think what we're seeing is my body size is an advantage, right? In a lot of cases when we're getting like into those sort of melee scrapes, I'm able to knock them down. In this case here, of course, this guy had like was it a spear or a billhook? The shield is very nice in these situations because you could really prevent them from stabbing you. A lot of weapons, you'd go in for a stab and they would impale you. And the unfortunate thing about getting impaled is you can survive and surrender if you lose like an arm or a leg. If they stab you right through the heart, you're just dead immediately. You do not have a chance to give up. So that can be very tough. Again, sword guys I'm a little scared of, but go in, land your 2 hits, get out. It's okay. Okay, so we're going up against Spiked Club guy. I think some people have said this is like an ancient Flemish weapon, a goethod or something like that. Your main objective, whenever you're in a situation like this, there's a main weapon difference is like, what is your ideal spacing? Our ideal spacing is we want to get as close in as possible. So we're going to use our shield to try and get in as close as possible. And then we're going to hug them while we're just swinging our axe at them. And that's the smartest and safest thing to do because he could stab you, or if you even just sort of trip on the little spikes, like you can easily die. Now we've got a little bit of padded armor here. I'm not even stabbing him with my axe. I'm just kicking him. Those are faster kicking strats, but it worked out. Now, that is a disadvantage. If you do have a larger weapon, this or a bardiche or a halberd or a polearm, whatever you want to call it, you are unbalanced. So it is much easier for you to be unbalanced yourself. Worked out here. Next up is I think I'm using the billhook. Billhook is very nice. It has both a piercing aspect to the weapon, and then if you're doing like random chops at either the arms or the legs, it has a blade at the end that could just hook it in and pretty easily cut off those limbs. So at this stage, it is probably the safest weapon. Like, you know, you could go in for a stab if you miss the stab, you can then just back up a little bit and then start just going for chops. So I got one there. As soon as you start damaging them, like if you have damaged them and you have not taken damage, you're already winning. So you do not need to take any risks. Just back up and take advantage of the fact that they're back. So this is a mirror match. The only thing we want to do here is we want to play it defensively, right? We don't want him to stab us. So we want to kind of go in from the left. And we're just going to keep doing little chops to the leg until he starts to topple over. We don't want him to stab us. We don't want him to cut off our arms. We definitely don't want him to cut off our legs. And again, each one of these little hits, it may not seem like, oh, he's not dead. But remember, he's going to start dealing less damage. His stamina is going to start going down. He's going to start getting a little wobbly on his feet. And some of these video clips are like mega scuffed at the beginning. I'm sorry about that. Okay, again, he was running into us, so we just went into a piercing position and stabbed him. It's really not bad. Okay, so again, we've got a small range advantage here. We do have to be concerned. We don't want him to stab us. We don't want him to start swinging with the club, but because we went with the bill hook, we're committed to a strategy of like a farther out, sort of a chopping, slow war of attrition style here. So I immediately got stabbed anyways. The range was not long enough. That being said, it wasn't major damage, so we could still try and either get a little stab off. Otherwise, we can just try and do our chops. And it looks like, you know, sometimes they're afraid of you. This is the point where really I should have just given up. I think we do end up winning, but once you've taken 2 decent stabs and you're on the boss and you've gotten past the sword guy, just give up. It's okay. We won because of faster kicking, but otherwise I would say not the best strategy. Bill hook is definitely at a little bit of a disadvantage against the boss. There's nothing wrong with getting up to the boss, backing out, switching your weapons, and then clearing 2 fights with another weapon. And in this case, I would say the mirror match isn't terrible. The Godasa, the spiked club, whatever you want to call it. This works however you want to use it, whether you want to use it, again, as stabbing, or whether you want to use it as clubbing. Big issue, of course, if you're going up against something like a bill hook. You want to make sure you evade the initial stab, and then you just go in. I don't even know that I really need to explain the club that much. No, I thought I edited this clip down. I'm just like standing around, waddling all over the guy. This weapon is great. It has the ability to knock guys out if they have a helmet. It has the ability to stab them. And then in a scuffle, if you half sword it, you have the ability to just start stabbing them all over the place with the little spikes. If you could take this weapon to the very end, I think it's up there in terms of weapons that you could just keep using the entire time. Okay, mirror matches again, we want to be afraid. At this point, you really need to play the weapon. So the same concepts of sword play apply. If they're swinging down, you can do a little bit of a parry by swinging back into it. The main goal is playing it defensively, right? When you see them about to swing down, make sure you're swinging back in a way that you're going to be able to counter them. Do not run, like, be careful with your own movement. If the spike is on your right, be careful not to full send it to the right. Spike's on the left, make sure not full send it in the left. You don't want to make it easier to apply your own mass. Okay, he's done. He's knocked out. Get this guy an aspirin. Okay, and boss again. It's a mirror match. He's larger than us, so you're going to have to play smartly. In this case, I saw his spike club was going up. I was already in a little bit of a sort of a thrusting stance, and I was able to take advantage of that. See right there? I don't really like to use the arrow time because when I run out of stamina at the end, I get scared. But if your reaction time is good enough, it doesn't take much. to land the stab. So I'm going to show soldiers' weapons. There is absolutely nothing wrong to rank up by using the militia with the spiked club and getting the bonus points. The soldier only gets a little bit of additional armor. It's really not that much better. We'll start with the spiked, the two-handed sword. I guess you do get like a chest piece. You do get some neck guards. And if you were getting into like a lot of melee scuffles, so in this case against anybody else with a sword, that sort of armor will prevent you from getting your head cut off most of the time. And I wish I could say like there's some major strategy going on here, but you're more or less going for anything that's unarmored. Legs are almost always going to be unarmored in this stage. Necks are commonly unarmored. In this case, the arms are armored on this guy, so we would want to be careful about going for the arms too much. It kind of depends on what sort of weapon they have. So in this case, we have a complete advantage. They have a pole weapon. There's nothing that stick's going to do to us. Get in, duck in, use your stamina to get past the point, and then just start half swording them to death. Same thing, if they're using a club, you're very unlikely to die. They could knock you out, but it's unlikely that they're going to kill you. They have to get you on the ground and like really get a good hit off on your head. Okay, so for this boss, he's again using a long pole weapon. His weak spots are his feet and like his groin. His groin is like exposed. So we're going to try and half sword into that and just more or less swing back and forth until we either get the sword itself or the sword tip into the joints. You might along the way get some cuts into the armpit. If you get very lucky, there might be a strange angle where you might end up hitting the head in some way. This is a good fight because it's unlikely you're going to die. As long as you get past the end of that. Not sure if it's a Bardiche. Not sure if it's a Polex. So again, this probably should have given this one up. But I guess I was feeling confident. We might win this one entirely by luck. We win this one entirely by kicks. I kicked his leg into my sword. Okay. Not the greatest example. Okay, next up is this two-handed axe. Not a great choice. The nice thing about the axe is it does seem to be a little bit better at generating momentum to get like an arm or a leg cut. The downside is in half sword situations, you only have a small bit of the weapon to work with, whereas against another actual sword, they have the full length of the blade to deal damage. So compared to the two-handed sword, I might actually rank it a bit lower, even though I'm showing it after the two-handed sword. That being said, I think we do have a good showing here. I think we go up against a lot of polearm users. The armor here is okay as well. We do have neck armor. Again, taking advantage of the fact that we have the faster kicking on this one build. Again, showing off two-handing. That's the nice thing. The two-hand is you have like a lot of momentum at the very end of this weapon. Okay, and we just then ended up getting him almost immediately in the crotch. So actually, strong showing in the two-handed axe. Just the only thing is if you're going to take it, make sure you've got good armor. Make sure you've got a good chest. Make sure you've got good neck. I think they all have a helmet, so you should be okay there. Last up is the halberd. Sorry that the video was a little corrupted there. Halberd is just going to be a little bit like the billhook. You've got a crazy range advantage. You have no issue at all chopping legs and arms. If they get close to you, just run away. You got a whole arena. Dance around them. They even get afraid of you sometimes. This guy's just afraid. He's just like backing up into the fence. Get him. And again, you can just slowly chop away. Again, it doesn't have to be all in one hit. We're going to skip ahead to the boss. So, boss, it's a little bit harder. He's got a ranged weapon. He's got the, I don't know if it's like a lance or a billhook. We've got a halberd. The only effective range for us is long. So, it's going to be another one where you got to play it a little bit defensively. You could go for the head. You could go for the legs. Or you can just throw swings out there. Even if it doesn't seem like it's doing a lot of damage, you will slowly build up stamina damage on them. Just as long as you don't die. So you've got your chest armor, your neck armor, your head armor. In this case, I've got gauntlets. You can wear them down through a war of attrition or hope that you get lucky. So I'm aiming at the crotch when that's open. I'm going to aim at the feet if they're not. Occasionally, if there's like a big opening, you might try and go for the head just to try and get a knockout there as well. Issue is he's got the arm armor. Okay, there we go. We got him in the neck. And once he's down, you just do the kicking. Okay, next up is Veteran. Veteran, you could again bring the halberd in and it's okay. Veteran doesn't get a lot of additional armor. So you could benefit by getting the bonus points there. Otherwise, I'm going to again show two-handed sword to start. I think I do a pretty bad job. So for both of these examples, I'm going to apologize because I think I do the same thing for the axe. I pick setups that have no neck armor. And you're at the point where you don't, like, I should have stopped here, right? I've got greaves, I've got full chest, I've got a neck, I've got a helmet, and I've got gauntlets. Worst case scenario, I'm going to lose my arms or my legs, and I should have enough time to back out if one of those got cut off. I don't know why. I think I keep clicking this button. Don't. Enjoy it when you have it. Because there are limited amounts of clicks that you can get to go through, and then you're just stuck with whatever you have. So the only benefit I got here was I did get arm armor, but I lost my sword of tacit, and I lost my neck armor. Not a good trade. Not good. I make it work somehow. But you're leaving vitals open that can result in you dying almost immediately. So because we're in this situation, there's almost never a case with another sword user, especially with this armor, that you want to get into a half sword battle. The only time you would ever want a half sword against another sword user is if you're fully armored and they're missing some major piece of armor. Neck. And not that they'd be missing their helmet, but maybe like their entire bottom is unarmored. Maybe you want to try and go in for an arm, but at that point, you may not have arm armor yourself. So again, you're going into like a 50-50 sort of situation. This is a little safe here. Again, somebody with a hammer, the most they're going to do is knock you out immediately, and then you have the opportunity to try and get out yourself. One thing you can do when an enemy is over you like this, and I don't show it necessarily in this footage, is if you start spamming the give up button, they will back away and they will give you a little bit of room to start standing up. Again, here, this guy has exposed arms. We had a range advantage on him. It wasn't too much of an issue to cut off that arm there. And again, this guy has an exposed neck. It's just violent, man. Even if you don't get the neck, you're likely to start cutting something else. Embarrassing again that I got knocked down, but there's no immediate emergency. Especially if it was just a slip. So this boss is probably my favorite boss in the game because he's just there to be one and done. You're going to take the best hit you can towards his head, and you just got to land one. And that's it. And it's over. And the nice thing is he has a mace. So he, again, is very unlikely to kill you. At best, he's going to knock you out and he's going to send you back around. So next up, I try to use Big Shield. Big Shield is neat. I like this type of sword specifically. Let me go back. I like this sword specifically because I feel like it's got better chopping strength to it. Your mileage may vary, but I think it works out pretty well here. So be aware of his range. So with an axe guy, we want to get in close and take advantage of the fact that our range of motion on this sword doesn't require as much of a swing up compared to the axe. Likewise, against sword guys, we can kind of get in a little bit closer and kind of like trip them up with our big shield. Make it harder for them to get their full swing out, their full range of motion. And again, because we have neck armor, we've got a chest piece, we've got a helmet, it's unlikely they're going to half sword our head off. Again, there's an exposed joint between his chest piece and between his legs. Oh, so here I am on the boss. Sorry, I goofed up a little bit. So for this boss, I found that going anime style, like Kirito style, worked out well for me. Press the X button to switch weapons, and then you switch with R to the hammer, and then you got two weapons. And then I'm just going to go wacky, wavy tube man towards his head until I land something. And again, because he's only using a mace, we're pretty safe. And so between incidental cutting damage, between the actual hammer itself, it really wasn't that bad to trip him up. Again, he's in full plate mail armor. We do have slightly less weight than him. So if he were to try and fall on us, we would definitely get knocked over. But because he has so much armor on, you just need to get a little bit of momentum, and then he's going to topple over much easier. Again, the importance of having a big willy here really matters. Okay, finally in this stage is this two-handed axe. Not my favorite weapon. Main reason being, we're not getting the massive range of the other polearm style weapons. We are also weak to being two-handed by people with swords. And the range on this, like the narrow spot of which this can deal damage, it's almost a little bit going back to being a peasant and having a hoe, in that you have a very narrow ranged window to deal damage. The other issue here is I don't have neck armor. So like I'm doubly weak. In a way, it's okay because we're not going to get into half sword range anyways. But all you can really do with this weapon, because it's not that graceful, is kind of go for head and neck chops. In this case, I felt like I did enough damage, so I tried to bully the guy into the fence. That was an okay hit in the neck. And again, it's like the main advantage of axes is as long as you land one solid hit on anything that doesn't have major armor, you're probably going to cut it off. Now, this guy was being funny. He grabbed me, which means he can't half sword the weapon. He can't effectively swing the weapon. And so then I just used my size and kicking momentum to get him into the fence. And that's good enough. You'll see for most of this, we're doing like one-on-one combats. There are certain other events that definitely like are safe and will give you more points than doing actual duels. But I think for learning the weapon, one-on-one makes the most sense. And in some multi-melee scrums, it can get bad. Like the bull hurts or whatever they're called, normally work out well. But if your teammates both lose, you've got 3 heavily armored guys going against you. Could be a challenge. Okay, this is a little bit of a mirror match. The difference is he doesn't have any arm armor or neck armor. Okay, again, here, all we have to do is land 1 good hit on the head. And learning that spacing is going to be everything through getting through so many of these phases. If the early phases are dominated by knowing when to kick and then just stabbing people, the later phases are mostly dominated by getting used to that good diagonal hit and spacing yourself so you can hit them in the head. Okay, so we're all already almost done. Next up is Man-at-Arms. Man-at-Arms is a point where you start getting close to having full armor. And everything I said before, I feel like still matters. I would, again, normally only recommend doing something like two-handed sword if you have neck armor. Again, I didn't do it this time. Do as I say, not as I do. The only difference is, of course, if you're going up against guys that only have blunt weapons, it doesn't really matter. Likewise, once you're at Man-at-Arms, especially if you have neck armor, don't have neck armor, you probably don't want to do a brave stand. Now, two-handed sword is probably at its strongest in brave stands. You're going to get normally at least 2 guys with no armor on, sometimes a guy with just padded, and usually there's 1 guy with at least chest armor. But all of these guys right now, they don't have any armor on. They don't have any leg armor. They barely have neck armor. So it's going to be, at the very least, assuming you space yourself well, a 2v1, and you've got way better armor than they do. Just be careful. You know, if you're ever in doubt, like if you ever end up on the ground with more than 1 guy in this, just give up. You worked too hard to get to be at the Man-at-Arms. Oh my God, that fight was over so quickly. To just get yourself getting dusted by a bunch of peasants. Because even like 1 peasant with a fork who gets lucky sticking it into the back of your head, like that's all it takes to die. And getting through the abyss at this level is very difficult. Okay, so strategy here. He's fully armored. Our best case scenario is going to be getting in close, half swording the sword, and just swinging wildly at his armpits and at his head, hoping that we get a lucky hit off. And so whether you hit him incidentally by poking or whether you hit him with the pommel, it doesn't really matter. You do want to try and like eventually edge him towards the fence. There we go. We got one decent hit on the head. And once he's on the ground, of course, it's over. So next up is we're going to try the axe. Again, I don't think this axe specifically is great. You lose the ability to half sword as effectively as the two-handed sword. The only thing it has going for it is like that one specific range. You're able to build a lot of momentum and get a KO in that way. I think I'm just taking advantage of my kicks in this one fight. Am I even using the axe? I'm just bullying him with my kicks. He has no neck armor, so we want to try and aim there. If he gets close, we would want to back up and half sword it, but it looks like he just tripped himself. I mean, I'm making it look okay. It looks okay, but it would not, again, this would probably be my 3rd choice. I think I would choose this probably before even the two-handed sword. Even if it looks good, I think for the most part, I'm just getting lucky. Here's it with a brave stand. It's okay against a brave stand, but the issue is like, if they start crowding you, are you going to have the space to build up the momentum with the axe in order to actually take advantage of that? Maybe? Maybe not. Now, against the actual boss, nice thing is it does have a little bit better range. It does have that weighted tip. If we wanted to try and swing it at his head, we might get a good hit off. Likewise, in half sword, it has that weighted tip. So because of his weapon choice, as long as we're close to him, we're likely going to win. Yeah, he's done. That one hit was all it took. So in a way, it's a little bit like a mace in this stage. It's just, it doesn't get the full benefit of the more weighted mace weapons. So another choice again is that there is a shield at this rank that you can use. So buckler is kind of nice because if you're swinging back and forth, it's a little bit just like having an armored weapon or like a blunt weapon anyways. It's a little bit safer too. It is normally in a position where you will be able to kind of get an automatic parry off. You're seeing I'm doing a lot of like almost Monster Hunter style sword and shield stancing. I'm switching it around because we have so much armor. We can immediately put ourselves into more of an offensive state where we're attacking with whatever our main weapon is, while still being able to use our offhanded weapon as a shield to parry with. And then, of course, if you wanted, you could just go full anime style and overwhelm them with that as well. And again, this is helpful at man-at-arms. I would be a little bit more nervous about using this normally. I'm showing off a lot of different styles. I showed reverse shield. I'm showing now just using the sword normally. But yeah, you want to be careful. Even with neck armor, you know, it's not like full plate. You want to be careful about staying in the half sword range. But if he's going to keep doing that half swording style, then especially with that sort of setup, you probably want to go ahead and use, you know, your axe or blunt weapon to try and get a hit off towards the head. Wouldn't recommend this. We've got a fully exposed back, especially right now. There's a guy staring at my back. There's two guys, maybe four guys staring at my back. But I'll tell you, it is fun. This is a very fun mode, the Brave Stand. User positioning, remember, you know, their bodies remain as an obstacle. So if you could space yourself between yourself and anybody that's fallen that they'll trip over, could be helpful. All right, and we're going to use the dual-handed style against this boss as well. Very similar to the previous boss. We're just hoping to get one decent hit off while he's like facing his back towards the fence. Or not, and just wait for him to get knocked over. And that's it. Okay, final rank is the Knight. And I'm going to show off. I mean, main thing is like, make sure you've got good armor. You know, you want pretty much across the board, you're going to get a lot of armor. But make sure your shoulder joints are protected. Make sure you've got your neck joint protected. At this point, almost every single thing on your body should have armor on it. There's no reason to pick a setting that doesn't. I think it's just a matter of just rolling into it and getting lucky. It would be very interesting in the future to see if the developer does like a sort of like a point buy system. I think would be neat to see if you could like spend points on like the type of armor you get. At this point, Brave Stands might actually be a little bit safe. It's very, unless you get knocked down on the ground, it is very unlikely that you'll die. And with something like the two-handed sword, again, 2 if not 3 guys are going to die almost immediately. And so it's going to be an overwhelming advantage. If you are going up against another knight, with a two-handed sword, it might be worth switching over to just the mace on its own. You will have a stamina advantage in terms of how many hits you can do with the mace versus how often they're able to swing their own two-handed weapon or whatever it is. Just gonna show off 2 brave stands in a row. I think I just like showing off people getting themselves cut in half. But just like if you were playing something like Dark and Darker, you know, you want to space enemies so that they have their ally between you and them. You never want there to be a situation where they're both facing in front of you. You certainly don't want there to be a situation where there's somebody in front of you and behind you. So you can see, you know, don't stay too committed to your two-handed sword. The mace that we have here is more than good enough on its own to take them out. Cutting damage is going to do little to nothing. So this is the boss. This is the final boss. Again, I immediately dropped the two-handed sword. All you need to get is 1 decent hit on the head and for him to trip, and then that's it. It's over. Now, he does have an axe. Theoretically, if he gets you on the ground and he finds a joint, he can kill you. I have died to him before, which was very upsetting. But it doesn't have to be like that. Just give up. It's not worth it. You only lose 1 point. You only go down 1. Just fight another guy and then go back up. All right, final set. This dual wielding, I feel like, is in a way slightly safer than the two-handed sword. Only because you're able to hit them from both angles. And so no matter what type of weapon they're using, whether they're using a sword or not, this allows you to go full offense with somewhat minimal risk to yourself. You know, the only thing that would be nicer is if, like, maybe we were using all bladed weapons against these unarmored guys. These guys actually are fairly armored. They all have the padded armor on. But as a knight, that makes sense. I mean, that's still relatively fair. And again, I'm not really using like a particular traditional medieval style. This is absolutely wacky, wavy arms. But I don't know. Traditionally speaking, like 90 to 95% of fights like in the medieval era were like spikes, like spears or clubs. I don't really know that there was a lot of medieval strategy of using like actually 2 weapons. I think for the most part, you just wanted to stab someone from like 10 feet away. So you're allowed to make up whatever you want. There's no rules. He's got a mace, so it's impossible for him to really kill us. We're just taking advantage of kicking him while as soon as you see him get off balance, just start sending the kicks. And likewise, we're just looking for 1 decent hit to his head beyond his shield. And the nice thing is because he's using a little bit of a longer weapon with a shield, he's going to be losing a lot of stamina. So even though he's normally much larger than us, it's almost like kind of tied in terms of like the sort of stamina usage between the two of us. And you can use your own knowledge, like your own information about the fence to bounce him into it. He's not going to take a lot of damage from the fence because he's wearing full armor, but he will still like recoil. And especially like this. Oh yeah. And this is a very funny win because he's ready to go again. Like he's going to get up like at the same time as us, but he's outside. So that's pretty good. Okay, so that's it for Half Sword. A little bit of a different video that I've done before. I really liked the game. I wanted to talk about it. I thought about doing a review of it, but then I thought maybe just going through a bunch of the weapons for the whole game would be interesting. So a little bit of a different experiment. Obviously, not Monster Hunter. We'll be doing some more Monster Hunter soon, though. There's arenas coming out for AT right now. That's something, I guess. Plenty of other games coming up soon. I am very, very, very excited for Night Rain. I'm also very excited for all of you. Thank you. Twitch Tier 3, Tier 2, Tier 1 Prime members, as well as the YouTube channel members. Thank you all for supporting the channel so much. Very much appreciated. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. But yeah, really looking forward to the full release of Half Sword. Should be coming out some point later this year. We don't know exactly. But let's all look forward to it again. All right. Thank you again, everyone who watched it and enjoyed it and learned something. If you've got questions about Half Sword or want to see more in the future, let me know. I would like to do the final challenge, and I did get very far in it, but it crashed multiple times. So I just don't want to do it anymore. I don't want to do it until they figure out why it's crashing. They said if you reduce the blood setting, it'll crash less. I don't want less blood. I want more blood and less crashing. Okay, that's it. Thank you all. Goodbye.